Has Dr. Joel helped make your life a little happier and healthier? Consider supporting the show for as little as $1 a month so we can continue to bring you the content you love. Just go to patreon.com/JoelWade. That's patreon.com/JoelWade. $1 a month. It's all we ask.
You are now listening to the Mastering Happiness podcast with Dr. Joel Wade.
There's so much that goes into being successful at anything. Talent, discipline, motivation, to name a few things. Luck can certainly play a part. The inclination to accept risk and hunt down opportunity can be important as well. But a central ingredient to success is also learning to deal with failure. Let's have a closer look at that today. I'm Joel Wade, and welcome to my podcast. One of the great truths of human nature is that we're creatures of habit. If things are good, we can, and often do, stay in more or less the same patterns of behavior for a long, long time. Staying in the same patterns of behavior, if those patterns work well, is a fine thing to do. It's a reasonable and smart thing to do in many cases. If it works, don't fix it, right? But there's another, more creative thread of human nature that seeks novelty, expansion, and improvement. A person can experience a lot of satisfaction being engaged fully in the pursuit of excellence. But there's another, more creative thread of human nature that seeks novelty, expansion, and improvement. A person can experience a lot of satisfaction being engaged fully in the pursuit of excellence. And excellence does not come about by covering the familiar territory of our well-established patterns of behavior. That means, to some degree, we have to be willing to venture into the unknown and do things we haven't done before. The chances that we'll be magically expert at something we haven't done before is pretty slim. So, the road to success, the road to excellence in anything, involves risk. When I say risk, I don't mean necessarily physical risk, though that can be true with some things. But whether it's physical risk or not, the general quality that we face and fear in pursuing something new and challenging is failure. Who likes to fail? I don't. Do you? Failure can feel humiliating, it can hurt, it can be depressing and disheartening. We like to win, and we like to see people win. The YouTube clips on social media of performance shows or moments in sports, they aren't generally the moments where somebody did just okay, or made a mistake, or totally blew it. They're the clips of triumph. That can be great and inspiring, but it can also skew our expectations and make it seem like phenomenal success is the norm, an everyday thing. But the truth is, excellence takes tremendous work to achieve, and often tremendous risk as well, because the path to excellence is paved with many miles of failure. If we're not willing to risk totally blowing it at something, then we won't be willing to make the bold moves necessary to really succeed. One of my favorite sayings is, "Be bold and mighty forces will come to your aid." That doesn't mean that mighty forces will come and make everything smooth and easy for us. It means that when we're willing to dive in all the way, including being willing to risk failing spectacularly, that allows us to take chances, to find out what's possible in unexplored territory. Those possibilities are what we sacrifice when we're too careful, when we're not willing to take a risk. But learning to deal well with failure is, at heart, just a skill. It's something we can learn, practice, and get good at. Years ago, I got to help our kids learn to ride their bikes. It was a little scary for them, as it is for many kids. It's new, and the ground that they're likely be falling on at some point is pretty hard. So the very first thing I asked them to do was to sit on their bike, and before they went anywhere, very deliberately, to fall over. They indulged me and did this several times, and then, when it was time to start riding forward and for me to let them go, even though they knew they were likely to fall, they were ready for it. They'd mastered the risk of what could go wrong in that situation, and so they didn't have to fear it. And because of that, they actually didn't fall. Not that day, anyway. This can be the great lesson learned from sports, because there's no way anybody is going to learn and improve at a sport without making lots of mistakes. When I play water polo, I know that I'm going to fail at times. It's inevitable. As a goalkeeper, anytime the other team scores, I've failed. It's all or nothing. Either I stop the shot and succeed, or they score and I fail. I've had a couple of games over the 45 or so years I've been playing where the other team didn't score a single goal, but in every other game, whether we won or lost the game itself, to some degree, I failed. Over the years, I've failed literally thousands of times. And of course, so have my opponents, because every shot I block is a failure for them. But being able to fail, then continue on with the same level of intensity and focus, that's what makes the game fun, and the event so dramatic. Michael Jordan, one of the greatest athletes to ever play basketball, said this: "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." Now, I don't think it was the failure itself that made him succeed, but his ability to accept it, to deal with it emotionally, learn from it, persevere through it, and grow his skills because of it, that's what allowed him to succeed. So let's get specific about how we can use failure effectively. Let me start with what not to do. Don't look for who else was to blame for whatever didn't go right. And don't look to deflect your own responsibility for whatever didn't work. These may give you a temporary relief from the pain and disappointment, but they'll also make it impossible to learn and improve. But just as important, don't go over and over and over the pain and humiliation of whatever went wrong. We get good at whatever we practice. If we practice visualizing and experiencing what we did wrong, or what didn't work, we'll be, in effect, practicing how to fail again in the very same way. Now, let's look at what to do instead. Identify what went wrong as precisely as possible. Then, imagine what would have solved the problem. What would you do next time if you're faced with the same challenge? Practice doing that in your mind a few times so you can feel yourself successfully applying the new solution. If you're stuck, if you find that there's something you don't know or you can't solve the problem or imagine solving it in the future, then set yourself to explore, study, or seek out someone who might be able to help you learn what to do instead next time. Then, once you have a solution, practice it a few times in your mind and be ready to try that out next time. Our emotions are, in general, future-oriented. If I'm feeling humiliation from making a boneheaded mistake, or shame from doing something that goes against my deepest values, or disappointment because something didn't go as well as I had expected, that feeling is part of my motivation to see that it doesn't happen again in the future. There are two general paths I can take with this: avoidance or engagement. I can avoid feeling those feelings again, maybe, by never trying whatever I failed at again, or by deflecting my awareness of my own role, finding someone else to blame. Doing either of these would make my life smaller. I'd be withdrawing from the possibility of truly learning and growing from the experience. The other path is to engage the failure, to examine what my role was, where I went wrong or missed something, and to learn and practice it differently and better next time. This path is more challenging, but it will make my life bigger, more complex, and more expansive, opening wide the possibility of learning and growing. And the potential to learn and grow from failure is significant. In research by Vinit Desai, Assistant Professor of Management at the University of Colorado Denver Business School, and Peter Madsen, assistant professor at BYU School of Management. They found that, while success is surely sweeter than failure, it seems failure is a far better teacher, and organizations that fail spectacularly often flourish more in the long run. As wonderful as success can be, as delightful and exciting as it is, learning from success doesn't seem to teach us the enduring lessons. Desai and Madsen found that there was little significant organizational learning from success. We found that the knowledge gained from success was often fleeting, while knowledge from failure stuck around for years, Desai said. But there is a tendency in organizations to ignore failure or try not to focus on it. Managers may fire people or turn over the entire workforce, while they should be treating the failure as a learning opportunity. We, of course, have the same tendencies as individuals. Nobody likes to fail. It can be humiliating, painful, and disappointing. I certainly don't recommend failing just for failing's sake. But the possibility of failure and the need to face it and master it is at the heart of a vibrant and adventurous life, and enables us to build the strength we need to engage the full range of what life can bring. Charles Murray, in his book Real Education, makes the point that one danger facing particularly gifted kids these days is that many of them have not had to deal with the humiliation of failure. Through high school, they're reliably at the top of their class, at the top of their game, and accustomed to being praised for their abilities. Kids who aren't so gifted do have to deal with failure. And while this can be overwhelming and heartbreaking for some of us, it can also potentially help us to become more resilient. Because more gifted kids often haven't had to deal with failure, they can be ill-equipped to deal with either the higher level of expectations that will face them in college or the realities of competition in real life. When we teach our kids to pretend not to know what the T-ball score is, or when we don't challenge bright teenagers to the point where they find their limits and have to deal with the emotional frustration and disappointment of failing, we're not preparing them for a bold and dynamic life. What we're essentially protecting them from is just temporary unpleasant feelings, and we're preparing them to be very, very careful and to be dangerously afraid of failure. Any great innovation or accomplishment is dependent on how strong we are in facing failure, learning from it, and solving the new problems that it presents. This takes emotional resilience, and that takes practice. And the truth is, reality kicks in eventually, and the illusions dissolve. Kids know very well what the score is, who's really good at a given game, and who's not so good. Those teenagers who aren't challenged enough in high school will be shocked into finding their limitations, and hopefully their strength to deal with it, either in college or in their careers. Sheltering kids from the experience of failure and disappointment has consequences. It can be tempting to do for the short-term relief or avoidance of pain, but it's much better in the long run to help them learn how to manage their emotions around it, and to learn and practice how to bounce back stronger after a setback. This is the difference between giving awards for simply participating in an event versus giving awards for actual performance. It's the difference between trying to make kids feel good about themselves for a moment for simply showing up and doing whatever, and having real standards to aim for while praising a child's effort, regardless of what place they come in. Trying to mask the truth that success requires hard work, frustration, setbacks, and perseverance only serves to deprive everyone of the tremendous joy and pride that comes of actual triumph. Think of a time when you've failed at something. Then picked yourself up, dug in, and done some really hard work to turn that failure around. How do you feel, knowing that you're a person who's done that? You earn something from experiences like that you couldn't have achieved otherwise. You're different from it. You earn a reputation with yourself as a person who can endure through hard times and come out stronger on the other side. That kind of reputation with ourselves is a special kind of resource that we can stand on and remind ourselves of whenever we're facing something daunting or scary. It allows us to know that we're the kind of person who has persevered and triumphed before, so we can darn well persevere and triumph again this time. It allows us to face hard times and the possibility of failure, and to know that we can deal with them in a way that we can feel proud of later. It's wonderful to win, to have things go well. The joy and exhilaration of victory can often hold the peak experiences that we love to savor. But what prepares the ground for those blessed moments is the resilience and grit that we've earned through facing the struggles of life with the best we have within us, and learning to persevere over time and through adversity. These are the necessary and essential ingredients for the triumph of a life well lived. A Master's Course in Happiness is a monthly, in-depth program to help you actively, purposefully, and effectively live a happier, more fulfilling life. This course is designed to teach you the skills and principles that you need to bring the best you have to offer, inside and out. Over the course of 12 months, we'll explore what I've found are many of the fundamentals of living well. Through audio, video, and written material, you're supported to learn and practice specific actions each month that will strengthen you, inspire you, and enable you to lean into life more fully. These are skills and principles for self-mastery across all the circumstances and personalities I have ever worked with for nearly 4 decades, based on solid research and experience. And right now, exclusively for my listeners, you can experience the Master's Course in Happiness at a great discount. Use promo code MH1, promo in all capitals, to get this $467 course for only $295 today. Visit www.drjoelwade.com. That's drjoelwade.com now, and use promo code MH1promo to receive this amazing course for only $295. A Master's Course in Happiness is designed to give you the most powerful skills that I can offer in a course. It will give you the tools and knowledge to apply yourself fully to the mission of mastering yourself. That's www.drjoelwade.com, promo code MH1, promo, all in capitals.